I feel like I have lost a lot of trust with doctors and medications and actually what they know. I feel like they'll give you a medication and it's more of a band-aid fix. Whereas when I did all the work with my naturopath, we did like poo samples and blood tests and how much fibre is in your gut and microbiome and all these extra bits and pieces which a specialist doesn't do.
Welcome back to the Colitis Unfiltered podcast. Today, I have the pleasure in speaking with Kylie, who got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis at age 35 in Adelaide, Australia. Kylie, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Hello, how you going?
Good. And thanks so much for speaking with me today. We're going to talk IBD, specifically colitis today. And what I'd like to do at the start is just to set the context and actually go back to where it all began. So my first question for you today is, talk to me a little bit about the first symptoms, how colitis started to show in your life and how you realized that something was wrong with your body, with your health.
I remember waking up one morning and I had this strange urgency of like I needed to go to the toilet. And I was like, went to the toilet and I was just like, what the heck was that? That is not normal. I think it was a couple days later, like the same thing kept happening. So I decided to go to the doctor because I was like, this is not normal. I did a few tests there and then I did a colonoscopy, which is where I got diagnosed with the colitis.
If you go back to the moment that the doctor announced colitis to you, did he explain what colitis was? Have you heard of colitis before? And what went through your mind as well at that moment?
So I hadn't heard of it before. The doctor was just like, here, take these medications, take this medication. It was like enemas and then there's sulfaxazines, I think it's called. Take this, it'll make you better type thing. And I was just like, what is even happening right now? It was like 3 days before my daughter's first birthday. And my mind was, what the heck has just happened to me type thing. I think I got more answers from Google, unfortunately, than from the actual specialist that did the colonoscopy.
So the person that diagnosed you then was a gastroenterologist, I assume.
They were, but they were very vague in explaining to me what everything was type thing. So, yeah, it was a bit strange, to be honest. From then on, I went back to see him and I said, I think it'd been like about 5 months or something. And I went back to see him and I said, how long do I have to be on this medication for? Because I wasn't seeing any improvements. And he was just like, as long as it takes type thing. And I was a bit like, well, am I going to be on this for the rest of my life? Because that's what it seems like is going to happen right now. So I went to another specialist in Adelaide and had a second opinion, which they did like a signiography. And after that, I was screwed because I pretty much was bleeding and it was like they just weren't careful enough type things. So I had to start all over again and they just said, keep going with like the medications, it'll help you. And I think this was probably about a year and a half later when all this was happening still. I remember my kids were just like, Mum, and I'd be, first place I'd look would be on the toilet, and that's where I was. How sad is that?
So you were pretty much, sadly to say, left alone, fighting with a new diagnosis, not really sure which direction this disease would take you, not really sure what treatments behind you could potentially pull you out of the mess or out of the flares. How did it progress then? So you mentioned they put you on medication, but did you stay on that for quite a while? Did they, put you on different treatments because you obviously didn't get better? How did that journey progress then?
So I was put on, I think they said Mesoben. They put me on that. and I was also taking steroids. They just said, you've got to take a high dosage of steroids. And we all know what happens when you take steroids and high dosages. And they also were just like, they were kind of telling me that it wasn't that bad, that I needed to go and have other medication. It was just borderline bad enough that I needed to take this medication type thing. So they said, you can go do trials at the Adelaide Hospital, go do cancer trials, which is obviously not what I had, but that was what they were telling me I should be doing so I didn't have to take the medication that was the next level up type thing, which is really strange to me. I really did feel alone at that point.
So there was definitely a lack of proactivity from your medical team at that standpoint, because it's like you said, if something typically is not working, then they move you up to the next tier. Eventually you ended up with biologics. So now, how did you continue to navigate your diagnosis, and how did you get better?
So I said to my husband, we had a long discussion about what to do next. And at that point, I had started seeing a naturopath, and we decided, I went into the specialist and I said, I don't think what you're offering me is going to suit me, having all the steroids, and that I was going to follow the path of the naturopath. And she was a gut wellness naturopath. I followed that path for about 2 years and I got into remission, which was amazing. It was a long journey, but I did it, which was amazing.
Wow. And good for you. I mean, typically when we talk about IBD, colitis, Crohn's, obviously the word medication is one of the first words that pop up, right? So I'm curious to know then now, and obviously you don't have to reveal all the secrets, but I'm just curious to see what the basics are that this gut wellness specialist put you on or recommended you do, that you can actually go from, let's say, prednisone to basically no medication, and yet being in remission as well.
Yeah, so it was a lot of trial and error. Beginning with, we kind of said, okay, try this. And that didn't go so well. I ended up with like a bit of a leaky gut, which was obviously another illness on top of the IBD type thing, because we all know what that is. But she actually diagnosed with me having SIBO. I don't know if you've heard of SIBO before. It's in the small intestine. So we treated the SIBO in my small intestine. And then we went on to do she gave me some extra medications that helped with which was just a natural zinc medication to help with the gut lining, and also a laxative, which helps to push everything through.
What role did any potential adjustments to diet play as you navigated this sort of, well, treatment in a sense?
Yeah, so I think the diets was probably the only thing that held me back a bit, because I say it took me 2 years, but I think I was probably a bit naughty in between that. I'd be like, oh, I'm getting a bit better, so I'll go eat a donut. And that was obviously from what the gut wellness naturopath was like, that is really bad, Kylie. You should not eat a donut. And I was like, I know, but I was feeling better. And then you take a few steps back. So, yeah, I'm sure we could all relate. You're like, feeling, yes, I'm feeling better. And then it's like, no, I should have never done that.
Yeah. So natural ways of treating this as opposed to, the typical medications. Now, this was a 2-year period. You're in remission. Did you in a way maybe lose trust in sort of traditional medicine medications, or do you just sort of apply this mindset to your colitis? I'm just curious to see, like, choosing sort of the natural path versus typical medications, if this is something that, I don't know, you would apply to the rest of your life, like the rest of your health as well, or if you still sort of stayed level-headed as well and said, well, hey, science is one thing, so I'll continue to trust in that as well. How do you feel about this now, 2 years later?
So I feel like I have lost a lot of trust with doctors and medications and actually what they know. I feel like they'll give you a medication and it's more of a band-aid fix. Whereas when I did all the work with my naturopath, we did like poo samples and blood tests and how much fiber is in your gut and microbiome and all these extra bits and pieces, which a specialist doesn't do. A specialist is just like, take some medication, take it, put an enema in, take a suppository, and let's see how that goes. And I just really wish that more people would trust like a someone that has studied the gut. There's a lot to it and a lot more to it than what a regular specialist, I think, even like says.
Remission is the ultimate end goal anyway, right? So however we get there, whatever works, it's great. And I do think that even though a lot of people are able to achieve remission with medications, I think a lot of people who don't achieve remission with nutritional medications feel a little bit lost. So maybe a story like yours can actually, well, be inspiring to those people to at least explore the way, right? Because we're not talking about this is right, this is wrong, but it's one of those this works for you cases, and potentially it might work for someone else, right? So today, how are you feeling? And you say you're in remission, but do you have occasional flare-ups? Are you just completely symptom-free?
So it was May, I was made redundant from my job. Before that, the job that I was in was just stressing me out, which then I started flaring up quite badly. I do feel like stress is a big part of colitis. It doesn't cause it, but I do feel like it definitely is a part of it. And so then I decided to start doing my online business where I can just work from home and see how I feel about that and whatnot. But today, unfortunately, I'm probably at the worst place I've been in probably in the last 2 years, having the major flare up. Last week we were away and I wasn't able to get the medication that I needed. So it's just, yeah, this week's been a tough week, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes. So in these periods of flares, how do you deal with the symptoms? What are sort of your go-to tips and tricks that you use that at least put a little bit of ease, to the agony and the physical pain that you're going through? What helps you feel better as you navigate flares?
I think just lots of rest and lots of sleep. I love peppermint tea. I think peppermint tea is amazing and very gut healing. But also, like, my kids are a lot older now and they just realize that sometimes mum just needs to rest. Also, the fact that I get to work from home I'm very lucky that I don't have to think about, do I have to call in sick tomorrow because I'm having an awful time? I can just stay home and feel sorry for myself.
That's completely fine, I mean, when we're flaring, we tend to like to sort of isolate ourselves a little bit if we don't have the opportunity to completely be by ourselves, right? Because we have other responsibilities like, parenthood, of course, then we give it our best. But, I always say suffering in silence sometimes is sort of the best course of action. So despite everything you've done to get better, still sometimes, like right now, suffering from flares, how do you keep moving on? How do you keep the hope alive that, hey, I don't want to necessarily want to at one point consider going back on, traditional medications, because it must be sort of a little bit of soul crushing, right? To feel good, to choose the natural way, but then still get sucked into a flare. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
And sort of, yeah.
Yeah. So I have been in contact with my naturopath again, and she, for some reason, she'll just ground me. She'll put me back on the right track and she'll help me to find where I need to be again. I know she will. So I just love that lady so much. She's just been a life changer. Yeah.
So then these flares, or the one that you're experiencing right now, these are then temporary, if I understand correctly. So you're sort of able to rebound and get better. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've started taking like all of my supplements again, which obviously is helpful as well. So
So,
yeah,
so yeah,
it's
of
just like
course, of course.
probably just as much as a normal person taking medication, but it's less draining.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to just quickly go back in time one more time around the time that you were diagnosed, and also, on the period that you navigated before you achieved remission. You were a mother at that point of your diagnosis already. How did you navigate that part of life while dealing with a disease that really sucks the life and energy out of you, essentially, right? When you first
Yeah,
diagnosed.
yeah. It's crazy. It's such a blur. Like, I was thinking back about it all, and it's such a blur, and it's such a mind game as to what actually happened at that point. My husband said to me the other day that he remembers coming home from work and I'd just be curled up on the bed. And the kids would just be, we've got 3 kids, and they'd just be playing nicely, which he said he didn't get home and they weren't feral, so that was good. But yeah, like, I don't even remember doing that. Like, I can't even remember being curled up on the bed, so it's such a blur.
When you diagnosed your kids, were they at an age to be able to sort of understand what mom is going through? Were they just too young? Because obviously, what the way we feel as parents sort of has a very strong impact on children, right? They're around, they see us, they depend want to mimic us. What was that for you like?
My eldest, definitely, she can remember. She's got such a good memory at that from when she was little. But my other 2 kids, they can't really remember. Like, my youngest was 1, and then I had my son, he was, like, 2, so they were very close together. So, yeah, they don't really remember. But, yeah, my eldest was just, like, she can remember, and she can remember me feeling sorry for myself, crying, exhausted, couldn't do much. Yeah, it was tough.
So coming back to today then and reflecting on your colitis journey, how has this disease changed you as a person, you think?
I feel like my kids are my number 1, work is number 2, and I've it's so sad because these days everyone's such a hustle, gotta go to work, gotta go do this, gotta go do that, and their kids just grow up so quickly. So, I'm so grateful that I can be at home with my kids, pick them up from school, take them wherever they need to go, and then while they're at school, I can focus on just resting, which is what is important with having this.
A lot of people out there in the world who are caring for somebody with IBD, are living with somebody with IBD, who are, loving somebody with IBD, don't always necessarily know how to approach this. So what would your message, your advice be to people, friends, family who support someone going through colitis or Crohn's?
Oh, that's a hard one. I feel like I found support from one girl in Canada, which has been amazing. We've been jumping off each other, explaining, like, we just get it. I don't feel like your family at home really understand exactly what's happening, which is it's hard, but it's like kind of mean to say, I guess. But they don't see you at home what you're going through day to day. They see the version of you pretty much putting yourself, the fake version, which is a bit sad, isn't it? When you're not breaking. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. It's we talk about it often as an invisible disease, but yes, it's visible to the people close to us, but they don't understand the level of pain, that we feel inside. So I don't think it's you said you think it's mean to say, but I don't think it is mean to say. It's just that they're innocent in their ways of not being able to relate physically to what you're going through, right? So, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. So, yeah. So living with colitis for 4 years, achieving remission, yet still experiencing flares every now and then. Obviously, you have learned quite a lot about the disease itself and about managing it in the best way that works for you most of the time. If you could travel back in time to the beginning, when you were diagnosed, when, the doctors didn't really explain it to you, what you've really struggled with, what would you tell that version of yourself back then, 4 years ago?
That is okay. Like, these things happen, just to get through it. I wish that it got explained to me a lot better about what was required. And I do think like things like the eating dairy, gluten, all those things, it's a flare for your body. I believe it's not good for you. So yeah, I wish from the day one that perhaps I didn't let it get so bad, and that I just went and seen the gut wellness naturopath and found my healing through there.
So where you are right now, if you look back at how you personally approached the management of your disease, do you have any regrets?
None. No. I would not do anything different. I'm so happy with what I've achieved. Like, I just think getting into remission was amazing, because I know that there are probably people out there that have been diagnosed with it for longer, and they haven't been able to get to that spot. So yeah.
So I'd like to sort of end these conversations, obviously, with the best possible message of hope. So 2 quick questions before we wrap up is, we actually just talked about it. There's a lot of people out there in the world who may be less fortunate in managing their disease, may have suffered for a long time. What message of hope would you communicate to them?
It's okay to talk to people. It's okay to go see a doctor, get their opinion on it, but really listen to what they're saying. And if they're not listening to you, then perhaps they're not the person that should be helping you. So really listen to them as much as they're listening to you. I think that's a huge factor in what I've learned over the years, because they weren't listening to me. They were not listening to me. Just because I look young doesn't mean I'm silly. I'm not.
Self-advocacy is crucial, and people should really stand up for themselves and stand their ground, because this is their health that they're talking about. So yeah, absolutely. So my final question then for you is, especially also somebody who has attacked colitis in a more natural way, do you think that we'll see a cure to IBD in our lifetime?
I think while the doctors are giving out the medications, no, I don't think so. I don't think that they actually really help. They just play games with your body. But I think that while there's people studying the gut and like gut wellness people, then yes, potentially I'd recommend going to see one. Even the one I seen is like 100% recommend.
So a different perspective on getting better and treating the disease, which is obviously quite fascinating to hear, and also to see that, you've able to achieve remission, at least for some time, and also get back into it. Kylie, thank you so much for taking the time. I also commend you for having this conversation with me while flaring, basically. So that takes a lot of strength. I really do appreciate it, and it shows that despite suffering, it's still important to talk about IBD, to talk about what you're going through. So from me, I wish you all the best. I really hope that you'll feel better soon, and thank you for sharing your story as well.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you being here. That's it for today's episode of Colitis Unfiltered. I'm Frank Tabering, and if this hit home or hit your gut, do us a favor, subscribe to the show, and follow us at Colitis Unfiltered on YouTube, Substack, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and Reddit. We'll see you soon for more inspiring stories from the bathroom floor.